Hello, I wonder if you've ever seen a St. Christopher medal. It's a large coin, or maybe a medal, and it's silver usually, and on the front of it it's got a picture of a man wading through a river with a child on his back. It's called a St. Christopher, and people say it brings them protection or good luck when they're travelling. It's a bit like a prayer you can hold in your hand. But what's the story behind it? I'm going to tell you today. And strangely enough, it's not a story about someone called Christopher, but someone called Reprobus. Reprobus was a man who lived in the land of Canaan. Now, when I say a man, he wasn't a man like me. He wasn't handsome and good looking. He was more of a giant, over 7 foot tall, with huge muscles in his arms and in his legs and across his body. He looked a fearsome sight, and people used to challenge him to a fight to prove their own strength and make bets on it with him. Of course, they never won, and Christopher made quite a living out of it. But he wasn't happy. He didn't like fighting against these people. He didn't like fighting for himself, just for sport. He wanted to fight for a purpose. He wanted to fight for a great leader, someone who was afraid of nobody. So he decided to go on a journey. He travelled through all the different lands around, asking people about their king. Everybody said their king was afraid of somebody or other, some other nation, some other ruler. But finally he came to a land where the king seemed to fear nobody. All the other kings around feared him. This sounded like the sort of man that Reprobus would like to serve. So he decided to ask to see him at his court. He was ushered into the courtroom, and the king sat on his mighty throne, and he did look quite an impressive sight. "I have come to ask you, sir, if I may serve you in your army." "Oh," said the king. "Delightful. Yes, we need people like you, big and strong. You definitely frighten off our enemies. Not that they need that much. They're so afraid of me." "I have come because I am told you fear nobody. Is that true?" "Yes, absolutely. I don't fear anybody at all. Of course, except for the devil. Everybody is afraid of the devil." "You are afraid of the devil?" said Reprobus. "Well, yes, but that's normal, isn't it?" "It may be normal, but it is not what I seek. I cannot serve you. Goodbye." And with that, Reprobus stood up, turned on his tail, and walked out of the palace, with the king scratching his head. Reprobus continued on his journeys, trying to find somebody to serve who feared nobody. He fell in with a band of robbers, and they certainly seemed to be afraid of nothing. They were delighted to have him with them. As soon as somebody saw Reprobus, they gave away their money without being even asked. One night, as they sat around a campfire, Reprobus told them his story, and he asked them, "Do you fear anybody?" "No," they said, "we fear nobody at all, except for Jesus Christ." "Why do you fear him?" "Because he is the best, kindest, most good person that ever lived, the Son of God himself. He would look at our activities, and he would be angry at what we do, and tell us to change. So we're afraid of him." "Then you are afraid of somebody," said Reprobus. "I have been here with the wrong group of people. I must leave immediately." And when they awoke the next morning, he was gone. Reprobus seemed to lose all sense of purpose. He didn't know where to go. Eventually, he found himself out in the desert, in a system of caves. And in one of the caves, there lived an old man, the wisest, most knowledgeable person Reprobus had ever met. Perhaps he would be able to help. Reprobus told him his story. The wise old man thought for a bit. "It seems to me you are looking for the wrong sort of person. You must serve Jesus Christ himself." "How can I serve such a person?" said Reprobus. "I have no brain. I am very badly educated. I am not very intelligent." "It doesn't matter," said the old man. "Use what talents you have. What do you have that you could offer him?" "I have my strength," he said. "Brilliant," said the old man. "Why don't you go and find yourself somewhere to live by a river, somewhere where people want to cross but can't because it's too deep? You could walk across the river and carry them to and fro. It would be perfect for someone like you." Reprobus thought about this for a bit, decided it was really a good idea. So he left the caves, left the desert, and sought out a river and a suitable spot for him to live. He found somewhere, and pretty soon he found himself very busy carrying travellers to and fro across the river and accepting a few pennies from them. He was glad he was doing something useful, something that would serve his God. Then one day a child approached him. This was a bit strange, that there were no parents with him, no grown-ups at all. "What can I do for you, little one?" said Reprobus. "I wish to be carried across the river," he said. "Very well," said Reprobus. He put the child on his shoulders. He was as light as a feather. It took him no effort at all to carry him down to the riverside. Reprobus waded into the river as normal and waded across. But when he got to the middle, he suddenly felt something very strange happening. The child was suddenly becoming heavier and heavier and heavier. It was the heaviest weight Reprobus had ever borne. He could feel it on his back, pushing him down, pushing him under the water. But he was determined not to give in. He was determined not to let the child drown, and himself with him. So he held himself straight as hard as he could, and struggling, he waded across the river until he got to the other side. As he began to approach the other side, he felt this weight being lifted from his shoulders once more, until eventually it was just the weight of the tiny child on his back. He set the child on dry land. Reprobus looked at the child and said, "Something very strange happened in the middle of the river. I felt as if I had a huge weight upon my shoulders, pushing me down under the water." "Yes," said the child, "for I am Jesus Christ, your Saviour. And when I died upon the cross, I took the weight of the world on my shoulders. Everything anyone had ever done to separate themselves from God, I took upon myself. It was the most awful thing anyone has ever done. I wanted you to feel what it was like to have that weight upon your shoulders too, to see if you would hold me up. And you did. You have passed the test. And from now on, Reprobus, you will be known as Christopher, the carrier of Christ. And people will look to you as the patron saint of all travellers." And that is exactly what happened. St. Christopher is still remembered to this day, many, many centuries later, for his kindness to all travellers. Next time you see one of his medals, maybe you could tell the story to the person who has it. Thank you so much for listening.